Patrice Formby. Kuwait is free and the fighting is over. That's if Iraq is willing to go along with all 12 United Nations resolutions. That's the message from President Bush. After having decimated Iraq's military forces, Allied forces were ordered to cease fighting at midnight Eastern Time. But in a nationally televised address, President Bush says whether the ceasefire will become permanent is up to Iraq. White House correspondent Mike McKee has more.
7 months ago, he vowed Iraq's invasion of Kuwait would not stand. It didn't.
Kuwait is liberated. Iraq's army is defeated. Our military objectives are met.
The war essentially is over. U.S. and coalition forces, Mr. Bush announced, would cease all offensive military operations at midnight Eastern Time. The U.S. is asking the United Nations to officially declare the war over.
It is up to Iraq whether this suspension on the part of the coalition becomes a permanent ceasefire.
Meaning Iraq must stop fighting, stop firing Scud missiles, and agree to the coalition's terms of surrender, immediately releasing all prisoners of war, the remains of those killed in action, and Kuwaitis held hostage. Landmines and booby traps must be located, and Iraq must agree to abide by all 12 UN Security Council resolutions, renouncing all claims to Kuwait and agreeing to pay reparations. Those terms, Mr. Bush was careful to say, are designed to humiliate Saddam Hussein, but not his people.
You, the people of Iraq, are not our enemy. We do not seek your destruction.
The president says the U.S. and its coalition partners have already begun planning the post-war reconstruction. U.S. forces, meanwhile, will soon begin coming home, although he gave no timetable.
This war is now behind us. Ahead of us is the difficult task of securing a potentially historic peace. Tonight, though, let us be proud of what we have accomplished.
The one thing the president did not address is the war ending with Saddam Hussein still in power. That, apparently, a problem for another day. Mike McKee at the White House.
Only a few hours after President Bush's announcement, Iraq told the United Nations that it would honor all 12 Security Council resolutions on the Gulf War. In a letter signed by Iraqi Foreign Minister Tariq Aziz, Iraq said it would comply with all pertinent resolutions as demanded by the U.S. and its allies. Iraq's ambassador said his government accepted council measures guaranteeing Kuwait's sovereignty and would accept liability for war damages, but only if a ceasefire were declared and an economic embargo lifted. Britain's ambassador said it would seek clarification of certain points before accepting that agreement. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers praised the outcome of the Gulf War, but cautioned that securing the peace will present mammoth challenges to America. House Speaker Tom Foley says President Bush had conducted the operation brilliantly, but he said restoring peace and security to the Middle East is going to be a much larger and longer task, one that will include the need to resolve the Arab-Israeli problem and limiting arms sales to the region. Wisconsin Representative David Obey said, "Thank God the war is over and the bad guys lost." British Prime Minister John Major says he is in full agreement with President Bush's announcement of a ceasefire. The two men spoke by telephone prior to the president's speech and said they were in agreement in their positions. Earlier in the day, British Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd met with President Bush at the White House. Hurd says he feels the economic sanctions against Iraq should remain in place even after the war is over. He said the allies must make sure this kind of aggression will be impossible to achieve in the future.
And we began to talk about ways in which this success, which our servicemen have achieved, American, British, French, Arab, that success, how that can be made solid for the future. They've managed to achieve that success in a few days. We have to make it solid for years ahead.
Israel's military commander says Israel may still strike Iraq, despite President Bush's announcement of a ceasefire. General Dan Shonron says as long as there are still Scud missile launchers, Israel will make a decision based on its own interests. How many Scud missile launchers remain in Iraq is unclear. President Bush's ceasefire announcement came after a day in which Allied forces scored numerous victories over Iraq's military. By the end of the day, there was only scattered fighting and resistance. U.S. forces destroyed more than 700 Iraqi tanks in what is described as the biggest tank battle since World War II 800 tanks and armored vehicles from 3 units of the U.S. Army 7th Corps destroyed more than 200 Iraqi tanks from the elite Republican Guard on a battlefield west of Basra. General Norman Schwarzkopf, commander of the Allied forces in the Gulf, says Allied forces could have pushed into Baghdad if they had wished to. He said there would have been no resistance standing in their way. Kuwait is free again, and the liberation of Kuwait from Iraqi occupation is being celebrated in Kuwait City. There's euphoria in the war-ravaged capital of Kuwait. People lined the streets, honked horns, and unleashed machine gun fire into the skies.
Very happy, extremely happy. It's like a nightmare that has gone away.
The Kuwaitis wandering the streets were ignoring warnings from resistance-run radio stations, which suggested giving Allied forces a chance to look for booby traps or mines. But the threat appeared to be exaggerated. There were no reported incidents. Kuwaitis ripped pictures of Iraqi President Saddam Hussein from walls. This man set a poster of Saddam on fire, eager to rid his country of any reminder of the invasion. But even as they frolic in the streets, Kuwaitis can't help but be reminded of the rebuilding to come. Scores of buildings are scarred by fire. Many others are still burning or smoldering. A thick smoke filled the air, the byproduct of dozens of oil fires set by retreating Iraqis. They set anything and everything they could on fire before leaving. Kuwaitis brought with them tales of hardship and tyranny, of living on little food and water, and of dead or missing relatives, victims of Iraqi torture and executions. Senator Alan Cranston says he has been treated unfairly by the Senate Ethics Panel. The panel has handed down a severe reprimand to Cranston, charging that it has substantial and credible evidence that the California Democrat engaged in questionable financial dealings with former savings and loan owner Charles Keating. Now, Cranston faces censure by his Senate colleagues.
Senator Cranston may have engaged in improper conduct which may reflect upon the Senate.
The panel says no further action is warranted against Arizona Democrat Dennis DeConcini, Arizona Republican John McCain, Ohio Democrat John Glenn, or Michigan Democrat Donald Regal. The House Banking Committee is considering how the government will finance the overhaul of the savings and loan industry. Treasury Secretary Nicholas Brady predicts Congress will pass funding legislation in the next couple of days. But Committee Chairman Henry Gonzalez of Texas does not like what he considers an administration sales job for a bailout plan that he says is too free with taxpayers' money. 11 coal miners were burned, one critically, when an explosion rocked an underground mine in Colorado. The men were pulled from the underground shaft of the Golden Eagle mine by other employees. 4 of the injured miners were flown to Colorado Springs. 3 are listed in serious but stable condition and 1 in critical condition. Details about the explosion remain sketchy. The sheriff says there were no signs of fire underground. Exxon and state and federal officials have reached what they are calling a broad framework of an agreement for settling the government's claims stemming from the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Alaska's Attorney General says that under the proposal, Exxon would pay to restore natural resources in Prince William Sound. The cost would be about $1.2 billion, that's billion dollars. The spill put nearly 11 million gallons of crude oil into the Sound in the nation's largest oil spill. The man convicted of assassinating Martin Luther King Jr. has been placed in solitary confinement. Authorities say James Earl Ray plotted his 5th attempted prison break with another inmate, and both are being disciplined. The action is subject to review in 30 days. Ray has attempted to break out of the Brushy Mountain State Prison 4 times. He was successful once in 1977, but was captured 2 days later.
Straighten out this music and help these young kids get on the right track and get them all on a good foot so we can all say, I feel good.
Soul legend James Brown has been granted parole. A 7-person parole board in Columbia, South Carolina, set Brown free. He had been scheduled for parole on March 8th. Under the terms of his parole, Brown will have to submit to drug testing until October 23rd of 1993. He will also have to attend a substance abuse program. Then he'll be on 5 years probation until 1998. Brown's been serving time for leading police on a high-speed chase through South Carolina and Georgia. NASA sources say there's a strong possibility the shuttle Discovery will be rolled back to the hangar for repairs. and that could mean a delay in the March 9th scheduled launch for the Star Wars research mission. Engineers have found cracked hinges on Discovery, and there are mixed opinions on whether it could be safely launched without repairs. NASA officials decided to put off a flight readiness review. A final decision on whether to clear Discovery for the March liftoff is expected on Friday.
The Master's Way and learn from the best. Two of America's favorite instructional videos are now available only through this special TV offer. Get tips from Steve Mizrak, Pretty Boy Floyd, Iwa Mataya, and other pool greats. Now for a limited time, you can order both videos for the price of one. Learn the secrets of breaks, banks, defense, position, angles, and trick shots like the masse and the jump.
Take it from me, The Miz. When you purchase Pool the Master's Way and learn from the best, you'll learn everything you need to know how to shoot pool like a pro. With these two tapes, you can do almost anything except beat me.
World champion Steve Mizrak takes you through the best way to improve your game. Call the number on your screen and we'll send you this wonderful 2-video cassette collection for just $24.95 plus postage and handling.
2 for the price of 1? How can you go wrong?
These videos have never been offered together and are only being offered for a limited time. Act now. Call before they're all gone. This pool offer from Key Media, New York.
Remember me? I'm the kid that had a report due on space. Then I got the new Encyclopedia Britannica.
He had a report due on space, and then he got the new Encyclopedia...
I think I made that abundantly clear.
Yes.
Anyhow, here it is. I mean, hey, everybody knows this is the greatest encyclopedia in the world. Help me get a B+.
Why not an A?
Too long. I found so much great information, I put it all in. Overkill. The next report I did was for my science class on the human body. Scored an A.
Good.
Look at this. I always wondered where my mandibula was.
For details on how you can own the new Encyclopedia Britannica...
Let's have that 800 number. Excellent.
Just call this number and we'll send you this free booklet.
Tell them about the gift.
And just for previewing Britannica in your home, we'll give you this 3-volume desk reference set.
This is like having your own research library at home.
Yes. So if you would be interested in owning the new Encyclopedia Britannica...
Don't press. They see the phone number. If they want to, they'll call.
I guess you're right.
Trust me.
The rain has finally, I say finally, arrived in California. Wally Langfellow joins us now. Wally.
They really have been waiting for this all winter long, and it has arrived. Some much-needed precipitation has been hitting much of California, and that activity will continue well into the morning hours. Earlier in the day, rains fell on Los Angeles from 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch of rain fell across the region, with 2/3 an inch recording at the LA Civic Center. About a 1/2 inch of rain also fell in San Diego, causing some street flooding there. A check of our latest radar map is showing the rain continuing over much of the state of California at this hour. That rain has been turning to snow in the higher elevations of the Sierra Nevadas, where winter storm warnings are in effect through the morning. Elsewhere, you can see some snow still falling in upstate New York and in parts of the Midwest as well. The overnight forecast is calling for low temperatures along the lower basin of the nation. You can see lows will drop into the 40s and 50s, and in the northern portions, it'll be in the 20s and 30s. Looking ahead to Thursday, the forecast map calling for rain to continue along the southeastern corner of the nation, then up to the north, snow over the upper Midwest, with rain mixed with snow over parts of California as that storm continues to move inland, clear to partly cloudy through parts of New England. Looking ahead to highs on Thursday, 60s and 70s across the southern half of the nation, 40s and 50s across much of the north, with some teens and 20s in the very northern portions of Minnesota and Montana, and then you can see 30s hanging on up in New England, with some 20s up in northern New England as well. And that's been a look at America's weather.
The American Airlines Pilots Union has ratified a new 4-year contract that ends months of bitter negotiations. The new pact will also make some of the airline's pilots the highest paid in the industry. In general, pilots will receive an immediate 8% pay raise, followed by 4% increases later this year and the following 2 years. The directors of the Allied Pilots Association approved the deal last night. There is no rank and file vote. Both sides say they will continue to resolve hostility lingering from the December pilots' sick-out. The civil rights movement in the 1960s stands out as a focal point in black history. Through courageous efforts, blacks won many of the rights once only reserved for whites. But as Keith Johnson reports, many don't feel the struggle is over.
The courtrooms in the street were often the setting for protests and demonstrations for equal rights. Led by Dr. Martin Luther King, the movement in Alabama gained national attention.
It is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps.
These were America's civil rights years. Those years opened doors for people like pediatrician Dr. Martin Van Sherrill.
I think it was tough, but I must admit I appreciate every moment of it. Anybody who starts out behind in the race has to run twice as fast to keep up or to get ahead in the race.
Alabama lawmaker Dr. George Grayson agrees and thinks blacks still have to run twice as hard.
I think the central focus of additional civil rights should be in the area of economics.
Grayson supports affirmative action.
Provide a means by which minorities could begin to participate in the process by which publicly allocated tax dollars were used to purchase services and goods, and that's all it was for. Right now, in many instances, you have the majority race with 100% of use of those funds.
Grayson says the Middle East war makes the timing ideal for affirmative action.
Because you have a disproportionate number of blacks serving in the Persian Gulf. We're there because the president is saying so, the country is behind that effort. And I think if they can line up behind that, we certainly ought to be able to rally together behind providing an equal opportunity for access.
26 years after the Civil Rights Act, theologist and writer Dr. Edward Cleveland says implementation is what he considers most important.
All men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. The people who started this country spoke the words. And all we have to do now is continue to remind them of the words.
Keith Johnson reporting.
A Current Affair has the Jim Morrison story the new movie won't tell. 3 of his ex-lovers reveal what the king of sex, drugs, and rock and roll was really like. Jim Morrison, behind closed doors.
Thursday on A Current Affair, then on Inside Edition.
10-year-old Stacy was murdered. Why is her killer free? Next, Inside Edition.
A Current Affair and Inside Edition, Thursday starting at 7 on WRTV-6.
A few years back, you didn't know him, but you knew his style. A daring journalist crisscrossing the world. A solid reputation as a tireless reporter. Now you know him. Whenever the world appears to be coming apart, he's together. In a crisis, he's on the air in seconds and can stay on for hours. He's Peter Jennings, the anchorman for the 90s. Join him weeknights on ABC's World News Tonight.
Hello, I'm Bruce Leonard with a look at sports. College basketball Wednesday night. Number 8 Duke looked to move into sole possession of first place in the ACC with a win on the home court against Clemson. This one turned into a blowout early on. Good ball movement from Duke here results in a Christian Leitner from the baseline hitting the jumper. Duke by 15. Leitner finished with 17 points. Then the Blue Devil defense gets into the act. Grant Hill the steal and coming right at you for the lay-in. Duke by 24 at the half. Hill finished with 15 points. Then it'll be Hill again. This time he'll do it with a turnaround jumper in the lane as Duke rolls the final 79-62. In the Big East, number 20 Seton Hall trying to wrap up their regular conference season with a win against defending league champion Connecticut. Pick up the highlights in this one in the second half. Oliver Taylor will hit the three-pointer. That brings Seton Hall to within 1 at 43-42. The Pirates then inched a little bit closer. Just over a minute to go. Terry DeHare from three-point land buries it, ties the game at 51. DeHare with 18 points. Game went into overtime. Closing seconds of OT. Chris Smith with the shot. Doesn't go, but watch Smith. He'll get a second chance on the loose ball and put it away with a jumper at the buzzer as Connecticut gets the win, 62-60. In the NBA, the road-weary Boston Celtics return home to the Garden for the first time in 3 weeks. Celtics looking to snap a 2-game skid, hosted the Timberwolves. Pick up the highlights of the first half. Larry Bird would finally break out of a scoring slump. Cans the three-pointer here. Boston by 12 at the break. Tony Campbell had another strong game for the Wolves. He'll hit the jumper here and would finish with 31, but it wasn't enough to prevent the Wolves from losing their 10th straight road game. Larry Bird with 33 points, and the Celtics win at 116-111. Now to the NHL, the New Jersey Devils battling Washington for the final playoff spot in the Patrick division. Look to pick up a couple of more points by beating lowly Toronto. Pick the highlights up first period to be Toronto, who would get on the board first. Dave Hannon out front, flips the puck past Sean Burke. Maple Leafs on top, 1-0. New Jersey then got the equalizer a little bit later. Brendan Shanahan on the power play beats Jeff Reese here, ties the game at 1. But from there, the Maple Leafs would explode, scoring 6 more goals. Mike Krushelinski will put the finishing touches on a 7-3 win. This will be Krushelinski's second of the game. And let's check all the scores now from Wednesday. At sports, I'm Bruce Leonard. Stay tuned. There's more after this timeout.
You know you're very special to me. Now, let me start again. We've been going together for almost 2 years now, right? 1 year, 10 months, 21 days, right? Why don't I just say it? Will you marry me? You want to think about it?
At Easter Seals, we believe it's what you say, not how you say it.
You will? Really? Really?
Support Easter Seals.
For those just joining us, here's a recap of the news from the Gulf War. President Bush has ordered Allied forces to cease fighting. He says in order for it to become permanent, Iraq must stop fighting and abide by all 12 United Nations Security Council resolutions. Sources at the UN say Iraq is ready to give in to the U.S. demands. Britain says it stands by the U.S. call for a ceasefire and also says economic sanctions against Iraq should remain in place even after the war is over. The New York City School Board voted to distribute condoms at high schools. Condoms will initially be available at about 30 schools. Eventually, they will be phased in at all 120 schools as part of the stepped-up effort to fight AIDS. Parents' permission will not be required, and that was a major sticking point. The board approved the measure by a narrow 4-3 vote. New York is the nation's largest school district with over 260,000 students. When some folks in Albuquerque, New Mexico say they're going to the dogs, it may not necessarily mean life is bad. In fact, just the opposite. Stuart Dyson has the story of an 80-year-old trainer who defies the cliche that says you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Okay, ready? Forward. Step out. Nice brisk walk.
When Kiku Kennedy got into the dog business, President Truman was busy jerking General MacArthur's leash, and Albuquerque's Northeast Heights was mainly a developer's dream. Since the spring of 1951, she's been raising dogs, kenneling dogs, and training dogs. Now she's 80. No sign of slowing down.
About turn. And fast. Now run. Please run now. I remember in 5th grade we had to write, what would you like to be when you grow up? Most kids said, a nurse, a mommy, babies. I said I want to be a teacher. No jabbering there, please. But I got married and I never used to teach. So when I got into dogs, I got involved immediately with dog training, and I just love it.
Now the city has engulfed her 6-acre bucolic island, but still the dog business goes on.
It is. How's Archie doing?
Not real well, thanks, though. But we're getting better. Oh, God, your camera.
I love them all, but I tell you, if for some horrible reason I could only have one dog, it would be a standard poodle. Now, the lady with the Springer really has it hard. Springers are one of the hardest dogs to train. Okay, time's up.
Stuart Dyson,
Line them up, please.
Albuquerque.
And that's the news for this half hour. I'm Patrice Formby. Thank you for joining us.